Hello, everybody.
Hey guys.
How is everybody?
Oh, hey Beth. Hey Maui girl. Hey Louisiana girl.
Thank you so much for everyone being here. We have a very special live today with a very special guest, Vanessa from Unmasked. It is so
Thanks for
good to see
having me.
everyone in the chat. Yes, thank you so much for coming on and for such an interesting case.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
I love the Conjuring movies, and I just love Ed and Lorraine Warren in particular. So I actually haven't even seen this movie yet, but it was a case I was already familiar with. But it's so fun just even diving back into it because you always pick up on something that you didn't realize before.
I agree. Oh, you haven't seen it yet. Okay, I was going to ask you earlier because I just saw it. I took my kids to see it a couple weeks ago, and I loved it.
Was it good?
Hey, Michelle. I thought it was really good. So I love the franchise as well. 2 is my absolute favorite. That one scared the crap out of me. So, I mean, it had a high, bar, but it's definitely really scary for sure.
You know Vera Farmiga, the woman who plays Lorraine Warren in them, she
I like
says
her.
that, yeah, she's good. While she was recording this, a lot of freaky stuff would happen to her. And she woke up one night filming this third one, and she had 4 scratches just across her thigh and stuff, unexplainable whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
I had
Really
not read that. Well, that kind of ties into everything that we read, on this case. Anyone that dealt with it had weird experiences, it seems like. Hey, Mama Bear. Hey, Sherry Ann.
No, Rachel, I have not been to the museum, but it's really interesting because each case that they investigated, and they claimed to have investigated over 10,000 cases, they would take one item that was significant in some way, and they would build up their museum, their occult museum with all of it, and they would have a priest come in daily to bless it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the Annabelle, like the famous Annabelle doll, which you're not even supposed to look it in the eyes. Which is a Raggedy Ann doll. Like, I don't know why in the movies they always portray it as this freaky, like porcelain doll when it's not at all.
I know it's way scarier in the movies, but I would love to go to that museum someday. It's on my bucket list.
Is it still open now that they passed?
I was going to look that up today. I think it is, but I know creepy dolls freak me out too. Do you like the Annabelle movies as well?
I mean, I think that the reality is much more scarier than the movie. So even though I love all these horror movies, when they're based on a true story, they always tend to sensationalize it.
Yeah.
So I do, but I don't, I don't like when you watch it and it's like, hey, that's not true. Because I know what's true and what's not true. Because I dig deep into these cases. But it's like, it's good, Yeah, I just particularly love the Conjuring movies. The Conjuring movies, because it's Ed and Lorraine Warren, it's interesting.
And if you haven't read their book, I don't get scared very easy, but their book kept me up a couple nights. It's really scary. That goes through all their cases. I know there's a separate book for this case, but it's definitely worth downloading on your Kindle. It's terrifying.
I'm more of a visual person, even though I there's some books I could read, but I'm the kind that I need it short and concise because I have ADD and I'll just get distracted easily. But
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Beth. Amityville, I've been by that house too. That was really cool.
Yeah, I live 20 minutes from there, 15, 20 minutes. And
that's right.
It was like a typical thing to do, on the Friday night was to drive out to the Amityville house. And it's a total normal house. It's not like what you would imagine.
It's a gorgeous house, actually.
It is. They theorized that entire Amityville was a setup, like that, like they did it for, like once he murdered his family, like that's when the Warrens approached him and basically said, hey, can you go with, like this theory? Because we're trying to get like this book deal out and it'll help you in your defense, in turn. And so they made up the whole map, but who knows,
Yeah, I'd love to hear what chat thinks about that after we tell the story, because there's been a couple accusations like that. there's one of those too, but I love the Warrens, so I'm biased.
Yeah.
Very biased.
Okay. No, Irvin, you don't feel really any of an evil presence going there. Like I said, it's a pretty normal house. Like you would think you'd be able to feel like this evil energy, this demonic presence, and you don't. So
yeah, I agree with that. I'll tell you what, going by the Watts house, you feel that, but I didn't feel that at the Amityville house. So
and
it's
I've
weird how
always
that
wondered
works.
that, yeah, because I at least believe that energy can, like be stored within inanimate objects. Same thing with 9/11. There's a beam, there's a memorial by us. And when I touch it, I could feel the energy from that day. So, you would think with the Amityville Horror House that you would feel something like that, but maybe because I wasn't in it. But I always asked everyone who went to the Watts house, like, did you feel anything when you went there?
Oh, I absolutely do. I feel like the whole street feels that really dark, empty, that heavy energy that if you felt it before, that's like.
Yeah.
Love you too, Insanely Confused.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm anxious to get into the story because it's really good. And let's see, I don't know, do you guys in chat, do you know the details?
Yeah, how many of you guys are familiar with this case of Arne Cheyenne Johnson?
And it's kind of cool because it incorporates paranormal for those people that are really into paranormal. And then, for true crime people, it's got that too. So it's kind of got both in there, which I love both. So
it's right up my alley. Anything bizarre and unusual, that's what I love to focus on. I just watched some of the movie on mute.
Oh, did you?
If you watch a scary movie on mute, it's no longer scary.
Seriously.
It isn't.
You can't watch it like on mute. The scariest parts, no.
It's the jump scares.
Yeah. And I know some people are skeptics. I always try to listen to every story with an open mind. And it's hard with it. Like I said, I love the Warrens, so I have a bias, but I would at least try to listen to it with the open mind. I don't know what you think, but with paranormal, unless people have been through an experience themselves, it's one of those things that it's easy to say, oh, that's not true. But if you've had an experience, then it's not something you can forget. Put it that way.
Have you ever had an experience?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, March of 2018. Really?
No. And I'm open to it. Like, I'm the one who's saying, like, if there's aliens, like, beam down and pick me up, I'd love to go on a ride. And same thing with the ghosts. Like, I'm interested, but it seems like it has to go to a person that almost doesn't want to be reached out to.
Well, I have a place you can come with me. We have a place in Colorado. It's in Black Forest. Everyone in Colorado knows it. It's terrifying.
You said that on one of your last lives, and I was interested.
Yeah. I can guarantee you'll feel something. Oh, geez. Everyone on my team doesn't. They're too chicken to go.
I'm pretty sure I heard you guys say, let's all do camping together. We'll do a girls' road trip and camp out there.
Yeah. Some people were like, okay. And some were like, no, I'll be drinking at your house. So we'll have to see. But it was really interesting. I definitely can't explain it. And that's one of the things about this story is it's one thing you can say, and we'll get to this, but it's one thing if you want to say the person had mental illness or they're lying or whatever. But if there's witnesses, it's really hard to, discount. If you have multiple witnesses, you'd all have to be in on it together. So in my case, I had witnesses too. So I don't know. I think that makes it even scarier.
Incredible witnesses. It's Vanessa from Unmasked is on panel with me for the people that are asking.
Okay. Yeah, Michelle, this happened in Connecticut.
This is also known as the haunting in Connecticut. You guys may know it as that, or the Devil Made Me Do It case. So, all right, let's get into it because I'm very excited. Okay, do you want to start?
Sure. So the story is obviously about Arne Johnson, but the story actually, it's so complicated and interwoven. It starts way before Arne and it just kind of leads there. But it actually started in the summer of 1980. And at the time, Arne Johnson was 19 and he had a girlfriend named Debbie Glatzel. And I believe she was 25 at the time. And then Debbie had two brothers, Carl Jr., because her dad was Carl as well, and David, who was 11 at the time. So it kind of starts out centering on David, and then you'll see it kind of switches over. And their mom was Judy. And when this happened, before everything started, Arne was described as very well liked, high energy, really hard worker, loved to go fishing, loved sports. Everyone liked him. No one really had a bad word to say about him before all of this took place. And they lived in Brookfield. And I don't know, we have pictures we can show you.
Yep, I'm getting them up
as we go, so you get kind of a visual idea. But they were in Brookfield, Connecticut, which is a tiny, tiny town that's been around since the 1700s. And I think in 1980, it only had like 13,000 people, something like that. And the crazy thing I learned about it is they had not had a homicide in 193 years, which is crazy.
Okay, guys.
And then part of it takes place in Newtown too. And I'm sure you guys have, familiar with Newtown because of Sandy Hook. And it's about 8 miles away from Brookfield, Connecticut. So Arne and Debbie wanted to move into their own place, and Arnie's mom was going to move in with them as well. So they found this rental home that they really liked in Newtown. So they weren't going to be that far. And that town had also, of course, been around since the 1700s. And I think it was a little bigger than Brookfield. It was like maybe 18 to 20,000 back in 1980. And so this all started in July. I believe it was July 2nd. I don't know if I'm wrong on a date, Melissa, just let me know. But I believe it was July 2nd. Arne and Debbie went to go clean up their new rental property, and they brought the two younger brothers, David and Carl, with them. And the previous tenant had just moved out, and she had told them that she was going to take all of her personal property out. But when they got there, one of the bedrooms was still full of furniture, and it had this large canopy bed, a waterbed. Mm-hmm. And they were jumping on it, and just playing around. And reportedly, the door just slammed shut by itself for no reason and scared them. And some other weird things happened. And then a little bit later in the day, 11-year-old David was cleaning around the bed, and he claims that he saw an old man in a flannel shirt who told him basically, beware, be careful, something along those lines.
Yeah, and he told them that he would harm him if they moved in.
Oh, that's right. They would be harmed if they moved into the rental. And he basically ran out of the house crying and refused to come back. And they basically, at first they thought he was just trying to get out of cleaning, but he was insistent that he saw this scary old man, which I could see how maybe at first they would doubt that.
Yep. And so when they went back to their normal house, he claimed that the old man would follow him. And only this time he claimed that the old man appeared burnt, like his skin was charred. And he always recalls the flannel shirt, but he said now his feet are like deer. He has these animalistic features. And what is something that we know a lot about hearing about demonic presences and whatnot is that they tend to have hooves, like just like a deer would. And so that's freaky, that's
very freaky. Screw that.
Yeah. He described them as having dark eyes and animal-like features. And from that moment on, David would have severe night terrors, unexplainable scratching and bruising on his body. And he would have episodes. He would have fits where it appeared that it was no longer David. He would crawl around. He would growl. He would hiss. He would scream obscenities. And, you know, it's for an 11-year-old boy, it was totally out of his character. Mm-hmm. He never portrayed any of these signs or had any of these, you know, instances prior to when they first went to that rental house.
Did you hear the story about the dog?
No.
Oh, so apparently, and I don't know why you'd leave your dog alone at a property without you. I mean, from what I could find online, it looked like they wanted to protect the rental property. So they left their dog alone at the rental property overnight. And then they all went back to their house in Brookfield. So the next day they get back and the dog was behaving really strangely. They said the dog was actually breathing weird, was cowered in the corner, was shaking, acting terrified, like it had been through something. And they saw that the dog had bloody paws. And when they looked at the basement door, there were all these claw marks, and the dog had basically clawed the door until his little paws bled, like he was trying to get away from something on the main floor or in the rest of the house, which is also terrifying.
Absolutely. And one thing I know about animals is that they tend to have an insight. They tend to be able to sense things that we are not able to perceive ourselves. And so that is bizarre. I didn't actually hear about that.
Yeah, poor dog.
Okay, so someone asked if the property had a history. And so apparently, no, it wasn't the property itself. It was when David's mother and sister took a trip. They were on, like, I believe, like, it was like either a snowmobile or a skiing trip. They met a family from upstate New York, and this family happened to dabble into like the occult and witchcraft and, you know, demonic activities. And so what they believe had happened is that they might have conjured up some type of spirit that attached to them, which in turn made David aware, and some form of a presence came to him. So it wasn't so much the property versus what the family was dabbling into.
Yeah, that'd be just my luck to make friends with Satanists and then have a falling out with them.
Right.
I mean, that's some crap luck right there. But yeah, that's supposedly what happened. They had these friends that they vacationed with, and they didn't know they were Satanists, and they had a fight. And that was the thing I was telling you about before we started. So allegedly, this is important to remember, their fight happened on February 16th, 1980. Is when they got in the fight with this family, which is super spooky as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It is, Michelle. That is something I would do. Oh, they seem nice.
Well, like, at what point do you think that discussion came up? You know, like, you're meeting a family for the first time. Hey, what do you like to do in your spare time? Like, how did that discussion even come up? And
that's true.
I wonder, like, I'm just surprised that they were like, yeah, let's, you know, I'm intrigued. Let's do this.
Right. Oh, well, in our spare time, we put satanic curses on people. No biggie. Lori, no, it wasn't the previous owners. It was friends of theirs that they had gone on these snowmobile trips with every winter. And apparently they were friends they made through that avenue. And then they had it doesn't say why they had a falling out, got in a fight, but it just says that they did that winter right before all this stuff started happening. So.
Okay. So at that point, I think about 12 days passed with David exhibiting these symptoms. And it was so bad that Arne, he was a hard worker. He worked for landscaping. He was described as the all-American boy. Like Vanessa said, he enjoyed baseball. He had a lot of awards for baseball. He enjoyed fishing, just the everyday stuff. And he would come home from work around 5 p.m. and he would eat dinner and he would go to sleep until around 11 p.m. because always around 11 p.m. is when David would had these episodes when things would get really bad. And it would go from 11 p.m. till the morning time that they would have to stay up. And there was one instance where Arne and Debbie were sleeping on the floor, because that's what they would do. They'd sleep on the floor of David's room. And they described seeing, let me see, what appeared to be a hand, a bone, just bones, a bone-like hand and arm come up through the wood of the floor. And there's no rational explanation for it. Obviously that, David was even asleep at this time. But this is something that it was either a shared hallucination or it was something that was actually there. So it wasn't just David alone who was experiencing it. The family was able to pick up on certain things, obviously, that was going on if they're seeing hands coming out of the floor.
Yeah. And at some point they decided not to rent that property. And Arne's mom was mad because she had already given up her lease at her place and she was supposed to move in with them. So she ended up moving into that place by herself, is what I had read anyway. And it's weird because there's some varying, depending on where you look, there's a little bit of varying information, but she decided to move in by herself anyway. So they ended up going back to their Brookfield house. And I believe it's on 3 Oak Grove Road. I love looking at, I'm like you, I'm visual. So I was looking at all the inside pictures online. And they moved back there. So you would think that them going back there would end it, but it didn't. And whatever this was followed them to the home in Brookfield. And that's what she was referring to, is all this weird stuff. And it was immediate. It was like the day that they got back from the rental house, all kinds of paranormal stuff started happening around the house.
And this is Debbie Glatzel. This is David's older sister, Arne's fiance at that time. But yeah, so apparently these entities or these demonic beings are able to latch onto you. The same way we could take Annabelle the doll, for instance. Apparently they can go inside either inanimate objects, or they're able to latch on to actual beings the same way they're able to latch on to a house, a property, and they infest themselves there, which is crazy. But Ed Warren said that basically, like the arm coming through the floor and whatnot, it's meant to frighten you, because he says that when a person becomes frightened, they will throw off this psychic energy out into the universe, which a negative force will fuel off, and they'll use that energy to manifest themselves more, which I'm not sure how that works, but I wouldn't be surprised, because even if you take science nowadays, and energy is something that, as we know, cannot be created nor destroyed. So it's very interesting to see, well, is this, and it makes me wonder, like, because we always think that, is a demonic being someone who's passed away and it's an evil soul, or how do you know it's just not something else going on in a different dimension that we're not able to perceive? Something like that.
Yeah, and something else that was interesting was, and we'll get to this later, but for the people who want to say, it's mental illness or whatnot, he did get a full workup by a doctor, allegedly, who could not find anything wrong with him other than a slight learning disability. But he was going to bed at night, David, the 11-year-old, and he was seeing visions of this old man, the burnt old man in the flannel shirt, coming out of this old well that was in the foundation of the rental property, and like traveling over the trees to the Brookfield house. And at first his family was kind of in denial and, thinking he was, kind of exaggerating or putting it on or whatever. And there was one night in particular where he was hysterical, saying that it was at the front door. I don't know if you read about that. And then there were the 3 loud bangs on the front door.
Yep.
And his mom was actually throwing, like water on the front door and trying to do different things because she was kind of freaked out that night. And he said it's too late, that the demon came in through the attic. And from then on, the occurrences got worse and worse and worse by the day.
Yep. So I'm just going to pull up a picture of Arne and Arne and Debbie, so you guys can see them.
And no matter what you guys believe in, do you guys know the stages of demonic possession? I always think that's interesting.
It is very interesting because who figured out those stages? You know, like, well, this is David's parents. So I'll show you guys this first. This is David's parents, and they're only smiling because, as you'll find out as we continue, that this was after what they thought was going to help David. So they were happy at this point, but it's not like these parents were crazy. David loved his parents. It was alleged that in one of his episodes, he even broke his mother's nose. So all this anger and this strength would be exhibiting, but the only way that they could describe it as it was not their son. When he would get into these episodes, it was not their son who was doing this. It was something else, and it was something of not this earth.
Okay, some people want the stages. Well, it's funny. So I'm going to go by the Warrens because I love them, but they have 3. Some websites had 4, some had 5. But what I've always read, because I've always read them, is there's 3. The infestation, which is when stuff starts happening and basically it lets itself be known. So that's when you hear like the noises and little things like that that you can't explain. And then the second stage is oppressive stage, where they pick a specific target to go after and basically start messing with that specific person. So that's when the person might start hearing scratching on walls, whispering, seeing shadows go across the room, that kind of stuff. And then the third stage is the actual possession, where the demon will actually enter the person's body and allegedly take control of their actions. And the other thing to remember is people think if you're possessed, it's all the time, every day, and it's not. I guess what I was reading about is it can come in and out at will, and so it could be 5 minutes, it could be a day, it could be a month, whatever.
Ed Warren specifically said that don't mistaken, you're not possessed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Demonic possession comes on fast and it comes on strong, and then it leaves.
Yeah, and then the other part of the possession that David had too was, as it progresses, he was speaking another language, which I don't know how you necessarily explain that, especially from an 11-year-old.
Absolutely.
And then he knew things about people he shouldn't know. There was that story about Ed walking up the stairs when they called Ed and Lorraine. Well, first they called a priest.
Yeah, first they called the priests, and they came in to bless the house. And then after that, they called the self-proclaimed demonologist, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Lorraine claimed that when she saw David, she also saw a black mist that materialized around them, and which to her indicated that the demon was present. She also claimed that she saw David being choked by that black mist, by invisible hands, and afterwards you could see red marks on his neck. Lorraine said David would growl and hiss, and just like Vanessa said, spoke in unrecognizable voices and languages, and he would also recite passages from the Bible. And his parents said that that is not something that he would be able to know. There's no reason he would know Latin. There's no reason. Even in the scary movies, sometimes you'll see it's when they're used have these voices, these demonic voices, it's almost as if they're speaking in 2 different tones at the same time. It'll be like a high pitch speaking and a low pitch speaking simultaneously. And that's basically what he was exhibiting.
And at one point, he claimed that there were actually 42 demonic helpers that were helping this main demon, and they figure out later what actually they think was going on, but he swears there's 42 of them, and he can describe all 42 of them in specific detail down to how they look and how they behaved, which is interesting.
Originally, they thought it was one demon that they were dealing with that they referred to as the Beast, but Ed Warren described it as basically a kaleidoscope. When this demon came to him and showed him his presence, it was a kaleidoscope of different faces. And I actually believe it was 43. He said there was about 43 different faces that came to him, and it was so fast. And it was just like looking to a kaleidoscope or a funhouse mirror, where when you look to the right, you have a bunch of your faces looking back, and you look to the left and it's the same thing, but it was a bunch of different faces, which told him that this isn't just one demonic spirit that we're dealing with. This is multiple. This is an infestation by multiple spirits. And it was after that that he basically called to David, called to the spirit and said, "Tell me your name." And it was only then that the person said 43 different names. So he didn't even tell anyone out loud that he believed there was 43 spirits infesting this boy. It was only after David happened to say also 43 different names that it was confirmed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and to answer your question, Lori, they do have recordings. There is a recording we're going to play of David Glatzel's part of his possession. And there's one other really interesting thing that was allegedly caught on recording that was used in court, but I couldn't find it.
It was actually really hard to find.
Yeah.
Even any documentation or any evidence really with this case.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the priests that they had come to try to help David, they weren't even just local priests. A few of them, one of them was claimed to be from the Vatican itself. 3 others were trained in Rome, and these were all ordained priests, but the main one who performed these exorcisms that we're going to talk about was Reverend Francis Virgilac. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But this guy was like the top guy, and he was the one who was performing the exorcisms on David.
This is public, Brianna. Another thing that happened was, as things progressed, David said that the demon had actually finally asked for his soul, and in exchange, he would leave him alone. And allegedly, David told him, he had refused. And therefore, the demon said basically that he would never leave him and torture him forever. And this apparently enraged the demon. And that was when the physical attacks really ramped up on David. And witnesses report that they actually saw the attacks happen, and they saw the marks on his body. So, I mean, I guess you'd take that if that was including the priests, including his family, and including the Warrens.
And that makes you question, okay, let's just say, because as we're going to speak about, mental illness becomes maybe an option later on. But if this is something that this boy was experiencing due to mental illness, where are these scratches and bruising come from? Where is this superhuman strength coming from? What exactly is everyone else witnessing? Because that wouldn't account for mental illness.
Yep. I agree. And so that's hard to, and I don't, they sent 3, I believe it was 3 or 4. I can't remember. I don't know if you know, Melissa, 3 or 4 priests came out.
A total of 6, but 3 oversaw, because there was 3 lesser exorcisms that were performed.
Yes.
With Ed and Lorraine.
And yeah, that's right. Because they wouldn't, so the church has a weird relationship with exorcisms. They perform them, yet they are embarrassed by them as well. And there's a lot of, denial, I think, that goes on when they do participate in them. And so they would not sanction a full exorcism in this case, but they sent the priests out to collect all the evidence. And they kept trying to do these mini, I don't know what to call them, mini exorcisms or mini
micro exorcisms.
Micro exorcisms. And they weren't working, and they were trying those, and it wasn't fixing anything, and things just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. So this is St. Joseph's Church in their town. And right to the right over here, this leads to the basement where a few of the exorcisms were performed. And this is actually adjacent to the Catholic elementary school. And they said that the exorcisms would become so violent and so loud and it would go throughout the night into the next morning, that the school children across the street were even able to hear it. And that's why they had to stop doing it at this church.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, that probably is a little scarring for the little school kids.
Can you imagine? And especially like a Catholic church school, like if anywhere you would think is safe, like I couldn't imagine the noises that were coming, because what their testimony says is crazy things were happening during these exorcisms.
Yeah. Well, like I always say, I was a really weird kid, so I probably would have wanted to go to the school with the exorcisms.
Right? It's so cool.
But that's just me. But yeah, there were a couple times where his mom swears, I am too, Gina, that she saw David being choked out, and that she could see him gasping for breath, see the pressure on his neck, and then afterwards he would have, like the red marks around his throat. So, and the priest reported the same thing. Also, the 2 episodes of levitation, there were two times documented where all the priests saw David levitate all the way to the ceiling, and the priests were pretty traumatized from this. One of them basically wanted to renew his vows to God, and another one had to go on medication for anxiety. So,
and when David was in these episodes, he was able to foresee certain things in the future. He was able to foresee that Arne was going to fall out of a tree, and allegedly he apparently did sometime in the future. Now, it wasn't that bad, and he obviously survived. The same way that allegedly they were able to predict what was to come in regards to the murder.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Beth, I'll have to look that up. I think I have one time. And everyone here knows who the Warrens are, right? Ed was a very well-known demonologist, and Lorraine was a clairvoyant. And they had just had a ton of media attention because they had done Amityville back in 1974. So they, and they were pretty controversial because, some people wholeheartedly believed in what they were doing and some people did not. But they were already really well known.
And it's interesting, at least to me, that so many people are willing to believe in, God and the religion, but they're also so very against acknowledging, well, then that also comes with the devil and any demonic spirits and things like that. For every positive, there is a negative. And you are taught that, but people were very closed-minded, especially back in the 80s, and weren't willing to accept that this could even be real.
Right. And even if you're not religious, I personally am Catholic, but even if you're not religious, I always find it fascinating when people think that they know definitively what's out there and what's not, because we don't. And I don't know. That's why I think learning about this stuff is fascinating, personally.
Absolutely. And it also makes you question, are we capable of having these types of abilities that Ed and Lorraine Warren had? Because I personally believe that we're taught from a very young age to suppress those abilities. But we obviously know that some people are gifted, and that makes you question, are we all able to do this if it's something that we acknowledged as even being an option for us and we practice those skills?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
I'm just making sure we didn't miss any questions. There was a couple interesting things when they were going to the house too. Lorraine said she had a really ominous feeling on the drive there. And then when they were walking up the front stairs, Ed said that he tripped and he looked down. He didn't see anything that he could have tripped over. And he brought a doctor with him to check out David and make sure maybe he didn't have any mental disorders that they could see or any physical problems. And so the doctor was walking behind him and I guess laughed at him. And he tripped in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
And they both felt that something tripped them intentionally to prevent them from going into the house. And then when they walked in the house, David already knew that they had tripped and knew that what had happened outside, even though he didn't see it, is what was reported.
She said it was a very weird day altogether, that there was many instances where it's almost as if something was telling them not to go there. But also when they got there, she said that tripping the doctor, it was almost as if mocking him because he was laughing, at and then all of a sudden the same exact thing happened to him and he was tripped.
Yeah. And at first, allegedly, David's mom, Judy, was hoping that it was just a ghost or a spirit. But once Lorraine saw the black mist and felt the dark, heavy energy, she was convinced, hey, Susie, she was convinced that it was a, evil demonic spirit.
So Ed and Lorraine Warren would describe that they would be sitting in the kitchen with David and his family, just trying to get details of what exactly is going on. And David would just be sitting there, drawing or doodling, and just like a normal 11-year-old boy. And then all of a sudden he would look up and it was no longer David. You would only be able to see the whites of his eyes. And it was like he was staring through your soul. And that's, another instance where she knew that this was far more than just one beast, the beast they would refer to it as. This was multiple demonic possessions that they were dealing with.
Yeah, that was a creepy part when she talked about that part at the table where he was writing and she would look at him and he would look like like his age would change right in front of her eyes. Just really creepy stuff. Thanks for clarifying, Shelley.
Well, Ed and Lorraine Warren have over 10,000 documented cases that they investigated.
Yeah.
So, when the priest came, they did deem David, like his case was accepted for exorcism because it was that bad. So they came in and they did evaluate him. And they basically said that, yes, this is a case that qualifies for an exorcism.
And as you hear in all the Conjuring movies, I mean, it's kind of a common theme. The demonic presences don't like any kind of religious people coming into play, and they don't like, demonologists or the Warrens being there. So, it was reported that when the Warrens got involved, everything kicked up 10 times worse, but then everybody was witnessing it. So on one particular time, so David was the only person that could hear the demon. But on one day, using David as a medium, the demon basically told Ed that he was Satan himself. And Ed Warren challenged him and said, well, if you're Satan himself, throw me through a window, which I would have picked something else. I'd have been like, pick up that plate or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, he said, throw me through a window. And when nothing happened, he kind of challenged it and taunted it and said, well, we're going to send you back to hell. And so I guess, it didn't, and I don't know how, maybe, Melissa, they did, and we'll get to that part, but they did figure out allegedly which demon it was because they reveal themselves.
Oh, actually, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, yeah. It was the one that we hear about a lot, actually.
Oh, is it the one from the other Conjuring? Is it from the one from the other Conjuring movie?
I don't know. I was going to look up and see does anyone know in chat the one from the Exorcism of Annalise?
Type it. Don't say it, you guys.
Yeah, I don't like saying it. I don't know. I don't screw around with that stuff. My son's yelling, just ignore him. So Oh, I haven't even seen this picture. You found ones I couldn't find.
So this is Lorraine Warren and this is Debbie. And they are outside. Like I said, this was a process. This was, over a course of time. And, like they would be doing many exorcisms, and they were doing, like, they have a lot of documentation, actually. They just didn't release it all. And it would have come out if the defense was ever able to be used in the trial, and they were ready to, and so were the priests. But we know now that was never released. But they always document whenever they're doing investigations. So this was outside of the church, and this is Lorraine and Debbie, and it was right after the exorcism. I'm not exactly sure what exactly was going on here, but I just enjoy watching it. Like as the story progresses, like you get to look in real time of what was going on.
Yeah, I think I was looking for, it was like you said, I was having a little trouble finding. I wanted more on the actual, and we'll get to that because we aren't even, we're trying to, there's a whole big story behind it. We aren't even on to Arne yet, but there really wasn't much at all on that part. So I wonder why that is. So let's see. Okay, and you got into the clove feet. So I don't know if you guys have seen the paranormal movies. One of the scariest parts, in my opinion, and like I said, I don't get scared that easy, was when they put the powder down. I don't know if you ever saw that part. They put the powder down on the floor, and then the next morning they see the hooved feet in the powder. Well, that kind of stuff started happening at the Glatzel's house. They could hear the hooved feet walking around the house. That would be so terrifying. I couldn't stay. That would be it for me.
I couldn't. I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess it depends on how freaky the sound was, but could you imagine like the hoof? Because it would kind of make like the sound that a heel would make, like that. I don't know.
No, because if I heard that, I would think the devil's come around the corner. Forget that. I mean, that's like in what's the movie? Which one is it? Annabelle? It's the original Annabelle, I think, where they have the demons like a 9-foot hooved. It's terrifying.
9 foot? Oh my!
Yeah, it's something like 9 feet. And if you read their book, a lot of the demons are like 9, 10 feet tall with, hooved feet. Forget it. Nope. I wouldn't be able to deal with that. Oh, did you tell them about the dinosaur?
No, not yet.
Okay, we haven't got there yet.
Yeah. So let me get okay. So they would perform these exorcisms on David, and the strength that he would exhibit, Ed would explain that it would take 4 or 5 grown men to be able to restrain him. There's no reason why an 11-year-old boy would be able to produce so much strength and so much energy that and if you guys remember the picture I showed you of David's father, he was a big guy, but he was not able to refrain him even himself, which is crazy. Lorraine claimed that during these exorcisms, David levitated, he ceased breathing, and was even able to foreshadow the murder that was to come, like I said. And
that's allegedly recorded on tape where he says Arne will kill someone with a knife, which is one of the creepiest. They sound scary if they're attached to a demon. They don't sound scary when they're on a cute little goat, but I think it's all context for me.
Yeah, but also, like, imagine predicting that. Like we said, Arne was this 19-year-old landscaper, all-American guy, liked his baseball, liked his fishing. At that time, it probably was just another thing that David was saying, because he was saying a lot of things. But now, looking hindsight and knowing what was to come, like, that's crazy. That's... There's no logical reason why he should have been able to predict that.
That's a good question, L'Oreal. Melissa, do you know the answer to that? If Ed Warren ever released his data?
They released some, like you'll be able to find some audio clips, some photos and stuff like that, but they never released all like the full load of evidence, and they claim that they had a lot documented, and they would have if it ever came to trial. But they're very iffy, like on all their cases. They won't release everything. I think it has to do with, they say, even the energy, even because if you even take a picture during one of these moments, the energy is able to latch onto that photo, and even being shown to multiple people, it's able to help spread it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Lori said can it be found online? Yeah, some of it can.
Yeah.
Other cases are more documented than this case, like the Annabelle or the Amityville Horror. And
Conjuring 2 has a lot online. Conjuring 2 has recordings and pictures of her. Yeah, I listened to some of those recordings. Some people won't listen to them because they believe that the energy can come through the recordings.
I have to listen to them.
I'm a masochist. I can't not listen to them, so I'll just listen to them anyway. But yeah.
So the Warrens explained how it wasn't just Ed and I. The cream of the Catholic Church was involved, and there was tremendous documentation. That's quoted. She said, David's possession was investigated by 6 ordained priests of the Catholic Church who participated in 3 lower exorcisms. Like we said before, I don't really know what the difference is between a full-blown exorcism versus the lower exorcisms. One exorcism took place at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, which is in their town, and I showed you guys the photo, with 4 priests in attendance who all agreed David was possessed. So this comes back again to the witnesses. You know, these are credible people. These are ordained priests. Some of them were from Rome and were, trained. Is it trained to be a priest in Rome? But these weren't just any Joe Schmo off the street. You know, like these are very credible witnesses who are claiming that, yes, this boy was full on possessed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess there's an extra, I don't know, what do you call it, language that they need for the full exorcism. And that was the one thing that they were leaving out, which seemed to make a difference. And from what I understand by reading up on it, it's only like 30 minutes worth of extra stuff. So in hindsight, it kind of seems like they should have just done the whole thing, but that's just me.
Right? Why leave that out?
Right.
Lorraine told the New York Post, because she had an interview back in like 2007, that when the demon took over, David would lower his head and then very slowly raise it back up, and his face would have a contorted snarl smile, which is totally freaky. I mean, if anyone's ever seen like a horror movie, like that's right out of it. You know, like imagine like just lowering your head and coming up and just like this contorted snarl on your face. That's freaky.
Yeah, very. Susie, tell me, I know you know a lot about this stuff. I'd love to hear what you know about this.
Yeah. And she described you'd only be able to see the whites of his eyes, and he would laugh hideously, like that loud, obnoxious laugh and it's a freaky laugh, you know, like that's not a laugh I would join in on. Like I could, and it's the most freakiest is that it comes out of this 11-year-old boy, which again, you know, for any of us who have kids, can you imagine your child to have this type of ability, to be able to, you know, recite these Bible passages, to speak in different languages, you know, for these demonic voices to come out, for this superhuman strength? Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, I know those are the things that I don't know how you can explain, especially just explaining with mental illness. I guess adrenaline gives you strength, but I wouldn't think not that kind of strength. Gone Prime Time. Do you remember which demon it said was in that? Because I've been wondering that all day, but I ran out of time to look it up. Researcher Susie, in the Bible, Jesus said we all need to do is order the demons to come out and believe. Belief is being Christian, it's essential if you put yourself in danger. Yes. And Ed says that a lot when he is handling. I don't know if you watch these, Susie, but he says that a lot, that he's protected in that way.
And I've heard that before, that even saying Jesus's name out loud during a time where you could be possessed or you're dealing with any kind of demonic presence, that it has extreme power.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Gone Prime Time.
Oh,
and they also talk about how it breaks down the family, because that's the intent. They want to break down the family unit. So allegedly this demon, or these demons, whichever way you want to think of it, they would use David's brother Carl to cause fights. He would taunt David about it, say that he didn't believe him, start fights with him, help them, go after him physically. And they kind of used him as a weapon against David, which started to cause the whole family unit to break down and fall apart as well.
I mean, already they weren't getting sleep. Like, even just as a normal mom, like, there are many nights where my daughter doesn't get sleep, which means you don't get sleep. But imagine having to rotate and stay up from 11 at night all the way to the morning each day, despite having to go to work, because your child is having these episodes, these fits, hallucinations, and it would be violent. Like we said, apparently he had broken his own mother's nose. So it's not like this child was just struggling and would have these fits normally. It all happened ever since that experience at the rental property.
And another interesting thing is, most of the time, in the movies, it all wraps up nice and neat. It didn't happen like that in this case. And even as we go through the story, it never really truly ended. I don't know if you saw, like, there's still things that go on to this day. So I thought that was interesting too. Oh,
yeah.
You don't watch them. Yep. I know it warns us not to, and it says don't dabble in demonic stuff. You're not even supposed to really listen to it or anything like that. I do it in the name of research, but I know you're not technically supposed to.
Well, it's all about educating yourself. Like, you should be aware and educated if this type of stuff really is happening. I mean, what good is it to be naive? Like,
it would be horrific if you couldn't help your own child. I think that'd be awful to watch.
Well, that would be the worst part about it, is being a bystander as a parent, watching your child struggle and go through this. And I'm sure, like, it must have took them a while. Well, I don't know, actually. See, the fact that they were even dabbling into the dark arts at all makes me question them. But in regards to a normal family, trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. Is my child just hallucinating? Is my, do they have some type of mental illness? It probably was a while before they even figured demonic possession. Like, is that even a viable option?
Right. And especially some of the physical symptoms that they described at the end are so sad. Especially, imagine if that was your child. Like they said, that they witnessed his stomach bloating out really huge, like his body parts would swell up and be contorted. He just physically, emotionally, he wasn't sleeping. He was basically just being pushed to the brink of death, almost on a daily basis at the height of it, which is awful.
Oh, wow. You've been present at an exorcism before? I have many questions.
That is fascinating.
Wow. There's a few demons on YouTube. Yeah, Buttercup, I think.
Can we get a priest on here?
Right? Oh my
God. And so if we want to kind of touch on Arne, so as these occurrences escalated for David, Arne loved David. They were close and he felt bad for him and he was becoming more and more upset. And so when he would go through these episodes, Arne would start screaming at the demons and tell them to leave David alone and to take him on and mess with him instead of, an 11-year-old boy. So he basically was challenging them a lot at the end. And Ed and Lorraine, of course, got really upset because they said you don't challenge demons, because even if it doesn't happen right then, they basically at some point will take you up on your challenge. And they thought this was a huge mistake that he made. And they kind of predicted, allegedly, that something really bad was going to happen to him in the future when he was really vulnerable.
Yep, that's what they said. They said it's not like the demonic possession, because that's where he went wrong. The moment that he challenged that demon and said, basically, come and take me, he said, leave my little body alone, like in reference to David. That was an issue. And one of the priests were so concerned for Arne that they even reached out to him and spoke to him about it, because they said that was an issue. Like, you can't do that, because they're not going to come now. It's not like it's going to happen right in that moment. It's going to happen when, like Vanessa said, you are at your most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to get up.
That's funny. Stage 1 of possession, open a YouTube channel. Yeah, that's it's a new stage.
So this is David during one of the exorcisms, and he is, as you can see, he is terrified. Like, I couldn't imagine, like, and we're just thinking about the family or what it would be like to witness it. Can you imagine being an 11-year-old boy yourself and going through this type of stuff? And you could see him clutching onto his mom, so fearful and so terrified. I'm curious if he was conscious and aware throughout the whole thing, because they say, not all the time would he remember, but would it be just like a light switch where all of a sudden he was there and then he's not consciously aware, or does he have any recall of this?
That's a good question. I can't see mentally how you would ever recover from this, especially, it'd be one thing to process it as a grown adult. To process that as a child like that, I don't think you could ever fully recover, no matter how much therapy you had. That's horrible, looking at his face like that.
And even if it got better, it's always the fear of, could it happen again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point too. Thank you, Jed's mom. And like Melissa said, it started getting really violent and scary towards the end. He did break his mom's nose, reportedly. He was doing the languages. He was grabbing sharp objects and actually trying to, hurt them. They were afraid that he might kill one of them. So it was escalating to the point where it was extremely dangerous situation.
Mm-hmm. They claimed that while in their house, that plates would levitate, rocking chairs flew through the air, and there's an instance of a toy dinosaur that, it was a toy, I have a picture of it, but that this toy dinosaur legit became like Toy Story and just started walking towards them. But then again, this comes into the whole fear factor. Like Ed said, the more you fear, the more scared you become. You're setting out this energy into the atmosphere, and they latch on, and they'll only manifest themselves even more. It's kind of like Freddy Krueger, like the more that you're fearing, the more that, like, he's going to come and get you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dinosaurs. I didn't find this. I've got to see this dinosaur, because I looked and I couldn't find it, and I just don't know. It's like the part in Conjuring 2 with the toy in the tent, but the dinosaur walks out in the hallway and tells you you're going to die, or whatever it said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. They said that they heard a voice come through this dinosaur saying that you are going to die. Can you imagine? And it's this innocent little dinosaur, and it was David himself who actually made the dinosaur. And to even see that thing moving, but a voice to come from it, I don't, like, you could imagine what my reaction was going to be, but I have no idea what I would do in that situation.
No. Pass out, maybe? I don't know.
Right?
There's just certain levels of scared that you just kind of curl into a ball. And like we were talking about earlier, the other people that were trying to help, the priests, the Warrens, everybody was reporting that even when they would leave the Glatzel house, they would be tormented and see black mists and have horrible things, being tormented when they left the house too, almost like a warning to stop helping.
Lori, this was in 1981.
Bye, Susie.
Yeah, bye, Susie. Thank you so much for being here and for contributing. But the part that makes me most angry, but at the same time, not angry because I understand, is 4 months prior to the murder that's going to take place that we're going to talk about, Lorraine contacted the police department and told them that, what's it called? They contacted the Brookfield Police Department to warn them that the situation with the Glatzel's household was becoming dangerous, but no action was implemented because basically there's nothing they could do prior to something happening. Like the only thing we could do is, like if the incident's occurring, to come out on the spot, but you can't basically call us and say, hey, something bad's going to happen. So it makes me angry only because we now know in hindsight's 2020 what's about to occur. But at that time, it's understandable as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in the movie too, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
How accurate was the movie? Was it pretty accurate?
It's pretty accurate. They put some scenes in there that aren't in there, and there's an interesting kind of side story going on at the same time that I guess is not that they added in, but it's really good. I definitely would go see it.
I haven't gone to the movies since like the whole coronavirus happened.
Yeah, I know. That was my first time back because I couldn't not go see The Conjuring, and it came out right on my birthday.
To.
Yeah.
Oh, did it? Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. My kids took me for my birthday, so it was fun. But they love scary stuff too. I didn't force them to go or anything, and they're older. Before anyone shouts like that's terrible,
I'm not joking.
They like it.
My daughter, she just turned 8 2 weeks ago, and she likes to sit in a pitch black closet while watching her iPad. Like, she'll get mad if you turn. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, turn on a light. She's like, no. And she wants to be alone with the door shut in a closet. So each, to each their own.
Oh, that's funny. I couldn't do that still.
I'm like, I'm afraid for you. Like, what are you doing? But no, she doesn't care. But this is the dinosaur that I'm still trying to figure, like, imagine that thing moving, like, and a voice emanating from it. But this is the exact dinosaur that David constructed. I don't know how he did it, like if it came together in pieces and you just put it together, but that's bizarre. That's
really bizarre. And it looks just so cute and innocent there. But I guess, again, context. If it was moving and talking to you, that'd be a whole different thing.
I know. It's fine when it's Toy Story, but this is no Toy Story.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, he does, Sherry-Ann. He and Debbie both supported Conjuring 3. Mm-hmm.
So, as Vanessa said, in one of the exorcisms, Arne egged on one of the demons to leave David's body and to possess him instead. And it was only a few days after that David showed a few signs of improvement, just a few, but then Arne began exhibiting the same signs that David had had.
Did you read the story about the tree?
When David was looking out the window?
Oh no, what's that one?
You do your tree story first.
Oh, see, this is why I love doing these things because I didn't see that. So the first kind of scary incident that happened to Arne was he left the house to go to the store and he turned on the car and the engine immediately, it was like pedal to the metal. The car started racing and a dark figure, like an arm, came out and pointed towards a tree, and then the car took off and crashed straight into the tree.
Oh, yes. Now I remember that. But I don't remember hearing about the figure. I remember him saying that the car felt like it was being pulled into, off-road into a tree, but I didn't hear about that. That's crazy.
So he took it as the demon was showing his power, like, look, I'm going to tell you you're going to hit this tree, and then I just made you hit the tree. So it was basically telling Arne that it now had control over him, which is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, heck no. I know. Night, Nikki.
And there was one instance where David was looking out the window into the backyard, and he pointed and said, "That's the beast now. The beast is right there." And when the family was looking outside, it was Arne that he was pointing to. And Arne was crawling around the backyard, acting obviously very unusual. That's odd behavior as it is, crawling around, but hissing and whatnot. So it was David recognizing that the beast, who they referred to as the beast, now took over and resided in Arne.
Wow. I did not read that. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then Arne claims that his final lucid encounter with the demon was back at the rental home when he was examining a well. And apparently this well is what housed the demon. Mm-hmm. And he said he truly believes he became possessed after he made direct eye contact with the demon. And at that point, Arne and Debbie decided against renting the home, and they began renting an apartment near her place of work in Brookfield, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. And I looked up what it looks like now. That's the pictures. They changed owners. They changed the name, I guess, for obvious reasons. But now it's called like Marta's Vineyard. It's like a doggy spa daycare place. It looks really nice. You'd never guess a murder happened there.
Not at all.
But I believe she worked for him too. So basically he was her boss and also their landlord.
Yeah, so the Alan Bono was the landlord of the apartment that they rented, which was very close to this location, which was a dog kennel, a dog grooming place. And he owned both the apartment building and the where she worked at this dog kennel. And they were very close in location to one another. But that's how they had this relationship with Alan Bono.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, it looks all nice now. And it's got nice. Like a lot of land, and it's got like I looked it up online earlier. Cheyenne.
Yeah, hold on, I'll show the other ones too.
That's a good question, Courtney. I bet you they do.
What?
She asked if she wonders if the dogs there can sense that anything happened there because the animals are so sensitive.
That is an interesting question.
Yeah, that's what it is now.
Mm-hmm. I think I have a photo of it back in the 80s. Check.
I know, poor puppies. And I can't remember if you already said this. He was 40, and this will come into play. This will be interesting. They did get along at the beginning, and they even hung out. They'd go to bars and have drinks sometimes together, but it seemed like they got along. They weren't there that long, but there didn't seem to be any issues up until there was. And I guess we can talk about that. Now, remember the date we talked about before, February 16th, 1980, was when allegedly the Glatzels got into this fight with their satanic friends.
And on February 16th, 1981, Arne Johnson called in sick to the tree service where he worked. Instead, he ended up meeting Debbie at the kennel where she worked, and her boss, Alan Bono, took them both to a local bar for lunch, along with Arne's sister, Wanda, and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin, Mary.
Yep.
At that point, you have to remember that Arne already was exhibiting strange behavior, similar to Debbie's younger brother, David. But while at lunch, Alan Bono began to drink heavily. He was having a good time. And upon their return to the kennel, Alan was very intoxicated at that point. A situation had occurred where, I don't know for what reason, but Alan grabbed a hold of Debbie's 9-year-old cousin, Mary, and he refused to let her go. I couldn't find much more details on why he grabbed her or how that even started. But Arne demanded and ordered Bono to release Mary. And when he finally did, do you want to take over, Vanessa?
Yeah. Well, before that happened, like you said, he was going into trances, Debbie said, and basically he couldn't remember the trances. He would lose time or whatever you want to call it, blackout. And then supposedly all I could find, and I was like, I was searching everywhere, was that he had wanted them to he had made dinner and he wanted them to stay for dinner. And because he was getting drunker and drunker, Debbie decided to take the 2 younger girls and leave. She didn't like the situation. So he tried to block the door and grabbed the 9-year-old's arm. And that's when everything basically went to hell.
I couldn't find that. Thank you.
And I finally found that after looking everywhere. But they basically, it was kind of a weird, going by what the witnesses say, the story gets weird. But this is what the witnesses report. So basically, he grabs her arm, and then it was reported that at that very moment that he grabbed her arm, Arne came under full demonic possession. And what's really weird about it is he first attacked Debbie, his own fiance. And he was kicking her and he knocked her down to the ground. And then they said that Alan Bono, from what I could get from the description, was basically just sitting here doing that and basically talking a bunch of crap to Arne, telling him to come fight him. There was this flash of silver, and then Alan falls to the ground, face down. And then after that happened, allegedly Arne began making like these animalistic noises and growling and howling, and ran out of the house. And they looked back down at Alan and saw that he was bleeding out everywhere. And then they saw Arne's 5-inch pocket knife that he carried around everywhere. And according to them, and they did testify to this, that the knife was glowing, is what they said. They also reported that they never actually saw him stab Alan, that they just saw like a flash and then he fell down. They never saw the actual movements. So I do think it's interesting that they called their parents before they called 911. But
yes,
that's
very interesting.
A little bit strange, but maybe that's, I don't know, how you did things in 1980 in a small town. I don't know.
But like, you know, like to claim that they never saw Arne in the act of stabbing Bono, it's bizarre. Like, you were all there, you know, and the injuries that Arne suffered were massive. He apparently had 5 very deep stab wounds, going mostly in his chest. And then I believe,
didn't one go like from his stomach right up, like through his whole body to his neck?
Yeah, so one went from down his stomach all the way up to his heart. And they said Arne began to growl like an animal, and you know, while stabbing Bono repeatedly, which kind of contradicts a little bit of not claiming they witnessed it, you know, like, but then, you know, so it's like which testimony is true or not. But yeah, so Bono had suffered 4 to 5 tremendous wounds, mainly to his chest, And Bono would later die at the hospital several hours later. And this had become the first murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut, in a very long time.
Yeah, that's crazy. Almost 200 years. That's just unreal. And then just like in the movie, Arne was, this is another interesting little coincidence. After the ambulance driver dropped Alan Bono off at the hospital and he died, everyone went looking for Arne because they couldn't find him. And he had wandered off in the woods somewhere. And the same ambulance driver that dropped off Alan happened to come across Arne wandering down the road in some kind of trance. And when he called the police, and when he was stopped, he just said, "I may have hurt someone." But
he had no cognitive recall of what had happened whatsoever.
Yeah. Yep.
So right after they actually took Arne into custody, and Ed and Lorraine Warren heard about it, they immediately called the police. And let me get the part because I want to make sure I have it quoted right.
Not a good time, Buttercup.
So Lorraine called the police right after Arne was in custody to inform them that Arne was under diabolical possession and that he did not know what happened for at least 2 hours. And of course, within the past 2 hours, he killed Bono. So I find that really interesting that they were so quick to call. He had just gotten in custody. He has no memory recall whatsoever, as far as he says. And they called them up, and it was basically, he's under diabolical possession. Can you imagine being the person answering that phone? Oh, okay. He's possessed. No problem. We'll release him.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's so weird. And he was charged with first-degree murder. Mm-hmm. And then I guess he mumbled to himself in his cell and then fell asleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it said. He was just in there talking to himself and then went to bed. So the whole thing is weird.
Well, being possessed is exhausting.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's creepy. And then he got an attorney, which I find this attorney is funny to me. He gets this attorney who takes the case for free. And the case is obviously getting national attention, based on what they're saying happened. And he wanted to get all the evidence from Ed and Lorraine and the priests and the recordings, and especially the recording that predicted that Arne would kill someone with a knife. And he wanted to present that and enter a plea of not guilty due to demonic possession, which had never been pled in history, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Martin Manella was the young up-and-coming attorney's name, by the way. But yeah, that's just, he said that he told Connecticut Superior Court that his client should not be held culpable for stabbing his landlord to death because the killing was a result of demonic possession. And that was the first time in U.S. history that demonic possession was ever used as a legal defense, because actually in other countries it has been used before. And so Martin Manella actually had planned to get priests from Rome, a priest from the Vatican, and other instances where lawyers did use demonic possession as a legal defense to come in and to give their testimony and to give their eyewitness accounts of. The other two cases that used demonic possession never went to trial, though. So as much as, that he wanted to bring it in and use them as an example, they've never actually been through the process of going through a trial before. But they were ready. And Ed and Lorraine said that the priests that were there for the exorcisms were outside of the Superior Court's doorsteps, ready to give and hand over all their evidence. They said that we had all of these audio recordings, visual recordings, photos, eyewitness accounts, testimonies, and we were ready to hand it all over. But I don't think the court or the judge was ready for that.
No. Well, can you imagine what kind of precedent that would set? I mean, for sure that like Chris Watts would use that. But I mean, there's a lot of people that, I mean, I guess it would be hard to, how do you determine? I mean, I think everyone would probably want to use that defense, right? Or try to. But the judge did decide to not allow the demon defense in that case, and he found that the evidence would be incompetent. And his argument was, how could they conclusively prove that he was possessed? He, you know, because it would just be based on witness accounts.
Yeah, his exact quotes, it was Judge Robert Callahan, and he rejected the defense, explaining it would be, and I quote, irrelative and unscientific. But Manella stated that, and I quote, the courts have dealt with the existence of God, and now they'll be asked to deal with the existence of the demonic spirit. And this is exactly what we got into a little bit earlier, is you put your hand on the Bible and you swear to God that you're going to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So you are acknowledging the presence of God. Well, if you're going to acknowledge the presence of God in a courtroom, then you need to acknowledge the presence of the devil or demonic presence.
Yep, that's an excellent point. It really is. Oh, Amanda G, I have that for you. Barb, I don't have any. Actually, Barb, we do have some receipts. We have a recording that we can play if you need your receipts.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
Let's play the recording so Barb can believe in demons.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I totally forgot about that recording. All right.
And then I'll tell you, Amanda G, what the prosecution's counter was.
So this clip is taken from one of David's exorcisms. Okay. So let me confirm you guys could hear it as I play it. Can you guys hear that? I just want to confirm you could hear it first.
I can't.
I know you can't, but
that's we know that. We established that.
I remember you can't. No, you can't hear it, Father Stuffles? Okay, so then I'm just going to go to that actual... Oh, wait. You said you're covering your ears. Okay, wait, Lori said no. Okay. That's weird. I don't know why that can't be heard, but... No, not this.
Beth. Beth's closing her ears and singing to herself.
Hold on one second. Actually, I know better way to do this.
Oh, that's right, Brianne. We learned that the other day. I think the audio is a different button than the... But I don't know. If Teresa was on here, I could ask her. Nikki. I had to add some creepy demonic pictures to it too, but it is on YouTube if you guys want to hear it and just go down the rabbit hole of listening to demonic possessions tonight. There's a whole bunch of them. They also have the ones from Conjuring 2. I think they have one from the first Conjuring as well.
Can you hear that, Vanessa?
No.
Tell me if you guys could hear this.
Oh, hey, Teresa.
You guys can't hear it? What?
Teresa, do you remember what we did the other night?
This is so weird because I've never had an issue with sharing audio.
Hold
on.
Before you share screen, click the little button on bottom that says share audio. Thank you, Teresa. I knew we played with that the other night.
So before I click share screen?
Yeah.
It says video file or share screen. So share screen.
I will tell you, Beth. It's not fake news. I can play it on my phone, Barbara.
Shared tab, Melissa Jade.
She's telling you to click share screen, and then there should be an option to share audio after you click the share screen.
I don't see that.
Nikki.
You don't hear that?
Mm-mm.
Then on bottom, check the box that says share audio. But I did.
Maybe it's a good thing. Don't worry, I can play it too.
I could play it actually from my phone. You guys should be able to hear it just fine. Let me know. Where's my mic thing? No, that's not one.
Demons say no. They're in charge. Maybe I'll go post a bunch of demonic videos on my Patreon for fun tonight. Terrorize everybody.
Oh, share audio. Okay.
Oh, you got it?
That option didn't come up for Safari, only Chrome.
Oh, yeah. Forgot to mention that.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
In the name of Jesus, Jesus repels you. Leave this child alone. It's on your forehead. Yes, Never, you are not strong, you're weak. You're weak. Ryan, Jesus loves this boy. This is a child.
Wake him up. Lock him up. Do something. He won't get out of it right now, Ma.
He told me the angel you left him down.
Well, what do you think you've been doing
In
all
the name
this
of the
time?
Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. You gotta hold him down. He told me to. Hold him on the ground. He said.
Get it. Mommy's here. Mommy's here. Come on. Wake up. Come on. Get up. Come on. Let's go. Get out of it. Get out of my son. Get out of my son. Come on. Come on, son. Son. Get up. Get away from my son. No! I'm your mother. David. David. Wake up. Get up. Get, David. He's the Holy One who loves you.
In the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
You can't get him up. Get up! My God, get up!
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine?
No.
Good health starts with good sleep and a ring.
No.
Or
it is true, Barbara. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Renee. I'm gonna find the scariest ones I can find and put them in Patreon. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. What do you guys think in chat? You could argue mental illness, I suppose. But also remember he did have a full medical workup and there were multiple witnesses to the things that happened. You know, 6 priests, the Warrens, all that.
It's eerie for me as a mom to listen, you know, to this other mother pleading for whatever is holding her son hostage to let her son go. You know, I couldn't imagine, because you're dealing with something that this isn't like your child is sick, go bring him to the doctor, or, you know, like they got a scraped knee, put a Band-Aid on it. Like, you're battling with something that's so far out of your realm of reality. How are you supposed to, like,
I know.
It's terrifying. I couldn't imagine.
And I mean, what did it for me, I guess, because in every single case, if you notice with Conjuring 2, and you guys can look up those recordings too, they blamed the kids for lying. They said the kids made it up. They said the kids, and that's always going to be what the skeptics say. But I don't know, what kind of pushed it for me was the 6 priests, and I don't know. That's a lot of people to be in on something that's not real. Christina, you've heard one before? That's what my kids used to call it when I was PMSing.
What?
They'd be like, watch out, mommy has demons in her belly. I'm like, well,
oh my God.
When they were like little, like
So
pretty close. Pretty close.
I mean, it's just.
That's a good question, Michelle. I agree, Shelly. That was my thing. There's so many people. Like, it'd be one thing if it was just a family. There's only one person, and we'll get to that. But there's only one person who didn't deny it back then, but ended up denying it years and years later. And we can talk about that. But at the time, I mean, everyone was on the same page. Oh, and Amanda, you had a question.
I don't know why my screen froze when I shared that screen. So no, it's fine though. I'm just watching the comments from my phone. So if I'm looking down, that's because I'm looking at comments. But yeah, the judge, Robert Callahan, he said the court will take judicial notice that the profession, the business or hobby of locating demons has not risen to the level of viability where it would be of assistance to the jury in deciding this case. So what do? They resubmitted it as manslaughter for the defense.
Yeah, it was manslaughter 1, but it was interesting because the prosecution argued that actually what happened, not demonic possession, was that Arne was drunk, was their argument, and that the fight was actually the result of a love triangle between Debbie, Arne, and Alan, which Debbie adamantly denied. And Melissa and I looked everywhere. We could not find a picture of Alan Bono.
Could not find it.
And I don't know when we looked everywhere. So if you guys can find one, or if you do find one, will you post it somewhere, send it to me, because it's driving me crazy. But she said that was absolutely not true. But I don't know if that's all the prosecution could come up with. But I don't even know what that was based on, because I don't know why they would even think that. I feel like that was just throwing crap at the wall, really.
Seeing if it sticks.
Yeah.
Like, the way Ed Warren explained it is he understood why the judge basically didn't want to allow that defense in, because not only was it, like we said, the first murder in like 200 years in that town, but he wasn't about to be the first judge to allow that, you know, the defense of demonic possession in his courtroom.
Yeah. Yep. And I can see that because even, okay, so I don't know what you guys think in chat, but I can see why that would be a dangerous precedent to set. Because again, how do you prove it without, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt? And then wouldn't everybody choose that? I don't know what you guys think. You think if they let possession in for a murder excuse, it would open up? I agree too. And again, what they had to bring in, would they have recordings? They would have the family statements, which they're biased. Oh, there's one other thing I didn't bring up too. So apparently right after the murder happened, the girls that were there, the one that grabbed their arm and the other one, went in and they gave a different statement to police. And when they got up on the stand, I don't know if you read about this, when they got up on the stand, they changed their story back to they never saw Arne kill anyone. So this was obviously a huge problem, but they said that the police basically bullied them into giving a different statement, that the police bullied them into, you know, saying that they did see the stabbing when they didn't. So when they took the stand, they were adamant that they did not see it. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that is kind of one thing that I found when it was brought up. So the story's changed. But who knows? Because maybe the cops did sit there and say, you know, how could you not see it? You had to see it. And they were kids. Weren't they like 13 and 9, I think, at the time?
Oh, and an interesting story is Father Vigilak, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but after one of the exorcisms, he went home and he woke up. And when he woke up, his pillow was soaked with blood. But it was not his blood. They said, Ed and Lorraine Warren explained it as this blood was a port, which is basically through teleportation. And again, this is another tactic these demons apparently use to incite fear and frighten them. And they're saying that blood basically dematerialized at one point and reappeared at another point. So what they think happened was the blood from Alan Bono being killed materialized back at Father Vigilak's on his pillow prior to the murder ever happening. Mm-hmm. And why would this well-known, very credible priest make these claims if that's not what really happened?
You you saw the real Annabelle, Christina? I'm so jealous.
Yep, blood on his pillow, Lori. Just keep chat civil, you guys, okay?
I don't understand it, but
I can't see all the comments. Like I said, my screen's frozen, but just please keep it civil. So yeah, they ended up changing his plea to manslaughter in the first degree and saying that Arne acted out of self-defense.
Yes.
Are you self-defense in regards to what? Because yes, Alan did apparently grab Mary, the 9-year-old girl, but I don't know.
What do you think that he was? I mean, I can understand. I think a lot of guys, if they saw someone grab a 9-year-old girl's arm, would freak the hell out. Not stab them to death, but I could see him getting his ass kicked. You know what I mean? But I can't see the stabbing him from the stomach up to the throat. What happened? So, and then if you add that into what happened before with David, and you add that into Debbie saying he was going into trances and blacking out, then I don't know. It does seem strange.
I mean, it's how do you prove the same issue that the judge was having? How do you prove to the jury, no matter how much evidence Ed and Lorraine Warren has, even how many audio clips we could sit here and listen to, well, how do you know that actually happened? And that's what's so hard about these cases is how do you prove that?
Yep. And so he was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years. He only served 5. He was considered a model prisoner and was released for good behavior. And during the trial, Debbie and Arne got married.
Yeah. Sorry. Please, everybody in the chat, just please stop. Okay? Don't know what's going on. Don't really care. Please keep it respectful and on topic. But yeah, they ended up getting married in prison. So the jury ended up deliberating for, hold on, I think I flipped my page. Let's see. You've got me all fuzzled. Okay, so the jury deliberated for 15 hours over the course of 3 days. And on November 24th, 1981, Arne Cheyenne Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. While in prison, Arne Johnson married Debbie Glatzel, received his high school diploma, and took a number of college courses. He was a model prisoner and was released on good behavior after serving less than 5 years in prison. Mm-hmm. Less than 5 years for a brutal murder like that.
Which there's another February 16th tie to. Basically, allegedly. Oh, did you already talk about February 16th of 1982?
I don't know. You can go ahead and do it.
Okay. So on February, so again, for the third year in a row, February 16th, 1982, Arne is stabbed on that date. So that date, and so, I mean, we can get into different theories. So, I don't know, but there's a couple different things. So while the trial was going on, the Glatzel family left the country and went to Canada because they were pissed that in the United States, they couldn't get any help and they couldn't get the full exorcism and things were still happening to David. So they left the country, they went to Canada, and they found this priest who finally did the full exorcism. So then this is where it gets interesting. This priest claimed, and this is how he's the one that discovered, I guess, when he was exorcising David, he got the demon to reveal itself. And it was, I'll just say, I don't think it matters if you say it once. This is Beelzebub or whatever. It wasn't 42 different demons, allegedly. And he was the one who, after talking to the Glatzels, realized that they had these friends that they'd had a huge falling out with that were Satanists, and they believed that they put some kind of curse, and this is in the movie too. They put some kind of curse on their oldest and youngest sons. So basically, someone had to die because of this curse. And Arne, by challenging the demons, saved David Glatzel's life, basically, because it transferred to him. And then I guess he took one for the team. I don't know how else to say it, but someone had to die. It was Alan who died. And then allegedly David saw Alan Bono's ghost visit him off and on, like on the anniversary of when Arne murdered him. He would see him visit him as his spirit. So, I mean, that's what the priest from Canada said. So, Brion.
I actually didn't know about that at all. I didn't know that because all I know is that basically he didn't really exhibit many signs after that. It was, and that's what really everyone was questioning is, well, if he was possessed, if he was drove to do this and he has no, memory of it, why wasn't he showing any signs of being possessed while in prison? And the only way that Ed would describe it is, like we said earlier, demonic possession doesn't just take a hold 24/7. It comes very fast, and it leaves very fast. But to show and exhibit no signs whatsoever, strange.
Yeah. And the Warrens were really pissed after this all happened, and they basically blamed the Catholic Church for not sanctioning the exorcism in the first place. And then the church itself seemed to be embarrassed, and they refused to comment on the whole situation. In fact, they denied knowing, at the end of it, after all of that and sending in the priest, they denied knowing even who Arne Johnson was, and basically just wanted to sidestep the embarrassment of it all, which we've heard in other cases like this before. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, like you said earlier, I think it depends on if you've experienced it for yourself. Like I said, I've never experienced anything, but I'm definitely open towards things because, like I even slightly mentioned earlier, I get into like the scientific part of it, like I'm not so much like the religious, like I'm open to many different things being possible. But if you've never experienced anything like that, why would you ever think it would be a plausible defense or something like this could be serious?
Yeah. We should take like a vote who thinks it was actual demonic possession and who thinks it was just murder.
Yeah, write 1 in the chat if you guys think it was demonic possession, or write 2 in the chat if you think it was just murder and it was simply used as a defense. But if you think it was just murder, you have to also remember that this was going on prior to the murder, so it's not like this was just pulled out of their butts and thrown out there. It was something that was going on and something that was well documented.
Well, okay. I knew you were going to say that, Teresa.
I wish my screen wasn't frozen. I can't highlight any comments, you guys. I'm sorry. Well, actually, can I? No, I can't. Oh, no, my screen froze. Let's see. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. 1.5, Shelly Love? Yeah, 1.5. Somewhere between the middle. You think he was nuts and used it as an excuse? So do you think everything that was documented prior was just used towards their advantage? Like...
There's Teresa, the practical one. And then we've got Christino. You're 1.5. Shelly, does that mean you aren't sure?
Yeah, unsure.
Yeah. Well, here's a little... That's interesting. Beth thinks 1. Christina thinks 1. Definitely 1.
I think the Warrens are most likely semi-legit.
I think so too, Brianne. Sherry Ann. Same.
No. But they were still together. They were still together, all the way up until Debbie's death.
Yes. Now, there is one little side thing. So in 2006, the brother Carl, I don't know if you, remember him from everything. He was kind of instigating things. He did come out and he said that he wanted to sue the Warrens, that he did not believe any of it was true, and that he believes that his brother had a mental illness and that the Warrens exploited that. He was the only one in this scenario who came out and said that, unless you know differently, Melissa. That's the only person I heard that said that that was not real. So I don't know.
Carl, which was David's brother, well, first, Gerald Brittle and Lorraine Warren got together and they made a 1983 book called The Devil in Connecticut. And then in 1983, a television movie was made called The Demon Murder Case, which aired on NBC, starring Kevin Bacon, Andy Griffith, and Clarice Leachman. David Glatzel never publicly confirmed what had happened to him, but David's brother Carl spoke out against the book after it was republished in 2006. Carl called the book a complete lie, saying that the Warrens concocted a phony story about demons in an attempt to get rich and famous at our expense. Carl says his younger brother David had been suffering from a mental illness at the time, which he has been since recovered. The entire family was manipulated and exploited by Ed and Lorraine. Carl filed a lawsuit against the book's author and the Warrens for unspecified financial damages. Brittle claims his book is based entirely on fact, and that he spent more than 100 hours interviewing the Glatzel family.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lorraine says that the 6 priests who participated in the exorcisms of David all agree he was possessed, and the Warrens and Brittle accuse Carl of filing a lawsuit for financial gain. So it's like a he said, she said, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess you could look at it like, if you look at it numbers wise, a lot more people said it was true and backed it than said it wasn't true. So I don't know. Teresa, didn't you have any experience? I used to play with Ouija boards too. I'm not going to lie, up until I was an adult, possibly when I was an adult, possibly within the past 10 years. But then I got rid of it.
Well, I just find it weird that Carl was the only one who spoke out. You know, I don't look too much into David not speaking publicly. You could take that any way you want. He could just simply be traumatized and not want to recall those memories. He just may not want to make his life public more than it already was. But you would think, like, I don't know, like we just listened to that audio and the mother was pleading with whatever was haunting her child to release him and let him go. Was that fake? Like, clearly at some point the family was invested in this and this is what they believed was the case. So what do you mean it was a hoax? Like, you guys, you know, like you guys really had to reach out to the priests and to the Warrens in order to even get this ball rolling.
They want you, Teresa, they want you to do a Ouija board live, apparently. I don't think I'm going to be on that one. Yeah, those are creepy. Well, it's an interesting case because I don't think that's ever going to be able to be used as a defense. And someone asked up above if we thought that Chris Watts would have used that as a defense. If that was available, hell yeah, I think he would have.
You think so?
Yeah. He tried that crap on like version number 2 or 3, whichever, I lost track. But I don't personally believe that he was. I think he's just, you know, I don't think he had it. I mean, what do I know? This is just my opinion. I don't think he was possessed. I think he's just an evil person.
Yeah. I mean, but even if you did, I wonder, like, if someone really did use that as a defense, what type of evidence would you have to produce for people to even ever be willing to take that as a plausible option?
Right. And who knows, maybe someday someone will try that again, but I can't imagine how they would set that precedent.
Yeah.
No, Teresa, don't. I agree, Christina. I think mental illness, I mean, we all know people with mental illness, right? I didn't ever see those particular symptoms or displays of behavior, but,
Hey, Megan. I mean, as eerie as like the audio recording is from the exorcism, I don't know how serious I would take that in the court of law, you know, because how are you supposed to say that that's actually what's happening versus I've seen, and to bring in the mental illness as an option, I've seen many people struggle with schizophrenia, multi-personality disorder, whatever, you know, even bipolar, you know, episodes where they could go into a full-blown meltdown. There's many, you know, instances, depending on, you know, like how far in the spectrum that they are, that similar behaviors can be exhibited. So how are you able to prove that this is, again, demonic behavior versus something that can be rationally explained due to a mental illness or just fabricated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think this one's really interesting. If you guys haven't seen the movie, I really, really think you should.
Oh, absolutely.
Not muted either.
Yes, Lori, the second picture up top is of Debbie and Lorraine Warren back in 1981 when this was happening. And this is them in 2014, which is kind of cool. I love the Warrens. They're so like, they're so, and you could go on YouTube and you could listen to their, you know, like their testimony of what took place, which I suggest for anyone to do, or whatever case you want. You know, like there's the Enfield poltergeist, the Amityville, Annabelle, there's many different cases. And listening to them explain in their own words, Ed and Lorraine tend to finish each other's sentences, you know, and that's something that I look out for. You know, like if you were fabricating and you were making it up, you're not necessarily going to know what the other person's going to say, you know? So yeah. Ed will begin telling his story and Lorraine will finish and let it off, you know? But then again, you could sit there and say, well, they've said it so many times, you know, like it's just memory at this point, you know, like they're memorizing a lie, but that's not the feeling I get from them. But who knows, you know, it wouldn't be the first time I was duped.
Yeah. No, I don't get that feeling either. I actually, and of course to each his own, I actually do believe it. I don't know. Just based on what I don't know. Based on what I've read in the priests all saying the same thing. In my own experiences. Because I do believe there's something else out there.
Oh yeah, there definitely is something else out there. I mean, you have to balance, you know, like if there is good, there's always got to be evil. You know, like there can't be one without the other. It's just the only thing I struggled with. Well, if that existed, if that was happening, there would be more evidence of it. But with today's day and age, you know, it was a little different back in the 1980s. Today, people are able to upload videos, you know, to YouTube, and it can appear that some, you know, ghost is throwing dishes in their house, but it's all just set up, you know, like, so it's hard to discern what's real from what's not. But back in the 80s, back when, you know, Ed and Lorraine were at their prime, this stuff not only was unheard of, but hush, hush, you know, you didn't want to be the people who were dealing with this. You know, it was embarrassing. You were the talk of the town. People thought, you know, you were crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. This is definitely a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I love Vera Farmiga.
I love Vera Farmiga. And did you know that the spin-off Conjuring movie, the Nun one, that's her younger sister playing it?
Yes. Yep.
And she's from American Horror Story, Coven.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's in a couple of them. But I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even realize they really do look alike.
Yeah, they do. I always love her. And I mean, Patrick Wilson does a great job too. I don't know, they're cast excellent. And I like all of them, but like I said, 2 is the scariest. 2 actually was so scary, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. And 3 was scary. I wouldn't say on 2's level, but it was scary.
I mean, it's the best part about it is that it's based on true stories, you know, like, and I love that. I absolutely love that because, like I say a million times, people likes to make up, you know, these superhero movies or these horror movies, and our reality and what happens in our universe alone is already bizarre and fascinating. So I love when movies will depict actual events and things that take place now. The same thing with Interstellar, which is one of my favorite movies, but something I've talked about in the past on my channel is that movie has gotten it more accurate scientifically, and it was the first movie that spent a lot of money to depict what a black hole would look like. And I love that, because if you're going to create movies or anything, you should base it off of real life and off of fact.
Yeah, I agree. And there is a lot of debate about what's fictional and what's not. And I won't ruin anything for you because you haven't seen the movie, but it does stick pretty much to the what actually happened. But like I said, they have a extra storyline. Yeah, Barb's a friend of mine. I'm sure it's fine.
My comments are frozen on this screen.
They're frozen?
Yeah, they've been frozen. I had looked at my phone. But I would appreciate if the chat was just respectful. That's it. I don't know what's going on. I can't really see what's going on. But there shouldn't be anything that's going on. Because that's being disrespectful to my guest, and that's being disrespectful to my channel. And I don't know what's going on. But
that's okay.
Come on, you guys.
We'll fix it afterwards. But anyways,
it's one of a doozy. It's definitely an interesting one.
It is. So, well, thank you. Hopefully we can talk about more of these. You should definitely go see the movie and let me know what you think, because I don't think the other side story that they do is real, but I do think they're doing it on purpose, because I read today they're going to lead into part 4, and part 4, they're going to start supposedly, I don't know, helping the police, because that's what they did in the 80s. They started helping the police solve murder cases. So that's what 4 and whatever. I'm sure they'll keep doing this franchise as long as it's as popular, but I think that's what they're going to do. And so they kind of introduced that in 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to watch it. I don't do horror movies that much. But like I said, I really like the Conjurings, and especially because they're based on true stories. But I think they did an excellent job, even in regards to filming and the quality. It's really good. So I look forward to it. But thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on. Thank you for everyone in the chat. I apologize for whatever went back in the chat. Don't really know, but I apologize that there was any issue whatsoever. But thank you so much for every single person that's come on and that contributed. And it was very fun. And I love hearing everyone's takes and perspectives and experiences. So that's really interesting.
Me too. It was a lot of fun, Melissa. Hopefully you can come back again. We can talk about another one.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night. And thank you again, Vanessa.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good night, guys.
Good night.